Courtroom Shenanigans. Welcome to another episode of Courtroom Shenanigans. Today we feature the top 3 list of convicts in the courtroom facing the music for killing legendary rappers. So with no time to waste, let's get into this. At number 3 on the list, we have Quincy Homier and Jam Hill. Quincy Homier, 32, but 23 at the time of the murder committed, is also known by the name Q or Quality. Homier's accomplice, Jam Hill, was 24 years old at the time of the murder. They were both from Long Island, New York. On May 17, 2015, Homier and Hill murdered Queens rapper Chinx. Chinx, real name Lionel Dufon Pickens, was signed to French Montana's Coke Boys label. Chinx gained recognition for his appearances on the Coke Boys mixtapes and the Cocaine Riot mixtape series for his unique style. Chinx was killed in a drive-by shooting in Jamaica, Queens. He was 31 years old. At first, police were stumped by the shooting. As the memorial to the hugely popular rapper grew, so did the questions about why nobody had been arrested. Queens Boulevard, where it happened, was known for its surveillance cameras, but the spot appeared to be a dead zone. Listen to what NYPD Chief of Detectives Robert Boyce had to say about Chinx's murder.
A lot of information from the hip-hop community, from social media sites, any conflicts this individual may have had. He had recovered 12 shell casings from the crime scene, all fired from the same gun. So we have one shooter. I do not have an eyeball witness right now to that scene, so we're trying to get the cars that were involved as we go forward. A lot of video download is going on right now out in that section.
A lingering personal grudge is reportedly what led to Chinx's 2015 murder. Richard Rudolph, commanding officer of the Queens South Homicide Squad, revealed the alleged killers had a 6-year beef with Chinx that began while he was serving time behind bars at Rikers Island. Quincy Homier was a rapper who went by the stage name Quality. Homier reportedly fought Chinx in 2009. Rudolph said, "We're not exactly sure what the fight was about, but our perpetrator Quincy probably got the worst of it, and he wanted to get back at Chinx. When he saw Chinx's career starting to blow, he took it real personal." Richard Rudolph explained that although Jam Hill didn't fire any shots, Hill participated in the plan to kill Chinx. Quincy Homier and Jam Hill followed Chinx after his performance at Red Wolf Lounge in Brooklyn. Once Chinx's Porsche pulled up to a red light at around 3 a.m., Homier allegedly fired a 9mm handgun into the vehicle, fatally shooting Chinx and wounding a Coke Boys affiliate in the passenger seat. On December 14, 2017, Homier and Hill were arrested and charged with murder, attempted murder, assault and possession of a weapon. It would take another 7 years before any progress was made in the case. Listen to what Chinx's wife, Janelle Caceres, had to say about the situation.
It gets harder and harder every time, just to literally stare someone in the eyes and not be able to say anything or react. It's hard. It's hard. It's a lot of emotions that run through you. Just a waiting process. It's an emotional roller coaster, and then, you come in and you have to see them and you have to face them, and it's like the feelings just run through you all over again.
On July 16, 2024, Homier avoided a trial and pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of first-degree manslaughter for the 2015 murder of Chinx. 6 months earlier, in a separate case, Homier also pleaded guilty to armed bank robbery and brandishing a firearm during a crime of violence. Armed with an AK-47 rifle, Homier and his accomplices took over a Wells Fargo branch in Hempstead and stole more than $375,000. Quincy Homier was sentenced to 18 years in prison for his role as the mastermind of the armed bank robbery in 2015. Listen to what Quincy Homier had to say to the family of Chinx at the sentencing hearing in 2024.
I'd like to express my condolences to the family and anyone else who was affected with what happened here. I don't believe there's words that can express the way I feel about what transpired here.
I was told I had 2 minutes to say goodbye. Holding his mother's hand, watching his lifeless body, praying and crying for him to wake up. A mother has to bury her son. At the age of 28, I had became a widow. My children, who were 15, 11, and 4, are now without a dad.
On July 16, 2024, Homer pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. 1 month later, he was sentenced to 23 years in prison for the murder of Chinx. Homer is currently serving his time at Hazleton USP, a high-security federal prison in West Virginia. His current release date is 2032. The case against co-defendant Hill is pending. He is also behind bars on other, unrelated charges in New York. In second place, we have Dedrick Williams, Trayvon Newsome, Michael Boatwright, and Robert Allen. All four of the suspects were from the Fort Lauderdale area of Florida. All of the gang members were known to be affiliated with the Haitian Street Gang, the MF, also known as Zopound. In June 2018, Williams, Newsome, Boatwright, and Allen committed a savage armed robbery and murdered triple platinum rapper XXXTentacion. XXXTentacion, real name Jarceon Froy, was a singer, songwriter from Lauderhill, Florida. Though a controversial figure due to his legal troubles, XXXTentacion gained a cult following among his young fan base during his short career. Critics and fans often credit him for his musical versatility. XXXTentacion, age 20, was murdered when he was shot near a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach, Florida. On June 18, 2018, XXXTentacion went to the Bank of America to withdraw money before heading to Riva Motorsports, an upscale seller of motorcycles and boats. After withdrawing money, he was followed by a dark-colored Dodge Journey SUV containing Dedrick Williams, Robert Allen, Michael Boatwright, and Trayvon Newsome. At 3:30 p.m., XXXTentacion arrived at Riva Motorsports and entered with his step-uncle, Leonard Kerr. Security camera footage showed that Robert Allen and Dedrick Williams then followed X inside the store and walked right past him as he was browsing motorcycles. The pair are recorded on camera footage coming into Riva and buying some black neoprene masks. Nearly half an hour later, XXXTentacion left the dealership, entered his black BMW, and began to drive away from the dealership. The SUV containing the gang members drove in front of his car, blocking his only exit from the dealership while Newsome and Boatwright approached the vehicle and demanded his property with firearms in hand. A brief struggle ensued, in which Boatwright and Newsome punched XXXTentacion several times. Newsome began demanding his chain. Amid the struggle, X's step-uncle fled the car, leaving the door open. The struggle continued with X being in a state of confusion. After failing to retrieve the chain from his neck, Newsome then ran to get into X's car on the passenger side, where the door was left open. Newsome entered the passenger side of the vehicle and stole X's bag, containing $50,000, and ran back to the SUV. Despite the robbery being over, Michael Boatwright walked back to his vehicle, held his rifle, looked him in the eyes, and fired multiple shots, murdering him. The perpetrators then fled the scene in the Dodge Journey SUV. The murder was premeditated. Investigators determined Dedrick Williams had been in a probation office at the same time as XXXTentacion in January 2018. Williams recognized his car the day of the murder. As the perpetrators were driving in a rental Dodge Journey, Williams spotted X's BMW in the car park and told the others that they should go into the dealership to confirm that it was actually him. On June 20th, 2018, a couple of days after the murder, the Broward County Sheriff's Office arrested 22-year-old Dedrick Williams in connection with X's murder. Williams was charged with first-degree murder and probation violation. He was denied bail. On June 25th, he pleaded not guilty. Williams had been arrested multiple times prior. On June 27th, Robert Allen, 22, was named as a person of interest in the case. Allen was later arrested on July 26th. Allen was taken into custody and charged with premeditated first-degree murder after U.S. Marshals found him at his sister's house in rural Georgia. He was booked in Dodge County, Georgia, and was held without bond on a warrant from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. On July 5th, Michael Boatwright, 22 years old, was arrested by the Broward County Sheriff's Office on drug-related charges. On July 10th, Boatwright was visited by detectives while in jail and was presented with his arrest warrant for premeditated first-degree murder. On August 7th, Trayvon Newsom, 20, was arrested and taken into custody. Newsom was booked on charges of premeditated first-degree murder and robbery with a deadly weapon. XXXTentacion's father, Dwayne Onfroy, stated that he wanted the death penalty for the shooter and life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the accomplices. On August 12, 2022, Robert Allen pleaded guilty to the lesser conviction of second-degree murder in exchange for testimony against the other 3 defendants. Allen essentially became a snitch. On March 20, 2023, the jury reached a verdict after 8 days of deliberation. Take a listen as the judge, Michael U. Sand, reads out the verdicts to XXXTentacion's killers in the courtroom.
In the Circuit Court of the 17th Judicial Circuit in Fort Broward County, Florida, the state of Florida versus Dedrick Williams, verdict count 1. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant Dedrick Williams in this case. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant Dedrick Williams in this case. The defendant is guilty of armed robbery as charged in the indictment. Count 1. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant Michael Boatwright in this case. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Michael Boatwright actually possess a firearm? Yes. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Michael Boatwright actually discharge a firearm? Yes. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Michael Boatwright actually inflict death to Jose Onfroy as a result of discharging a firearm in his possession? Yes. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant Michael Boatwright in this case. The defendant is guilty of armed robbery as charged in the indictment. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Michael Boatwright actually possess a firearm? Yes. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Michael Boatwright actually discharge a firearm? Yes. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Michael Boatwright actually inflict death to Jose Onfroy as a result of discharging a firearm in his possession? Yes. Verdict, count 1. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant Trayvon Newsom in this case. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Trayvon Newsom actually possess a firearm? Yes. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant Trayvon Newsom in this case. The defendant is guilty of armed robbery as charged in the indictment. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant Trayvon Newsom actually possess a firearm? Yes. So say we all, this 20th day of March 2023 at Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida, signed by the foreperson. Either side, which wish the jurors polled?
Yes, Judge. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, you'll poll the jury?
Yes.
Since they were charged in Florida, if convicted of first-degree murder, the gang would have been facing capital punishment. However, the prosecution decided to seek life in prison without the possibility of parole for all of the perpetrators. On April 6, 2023, Trayvon Newsom and Dedrick Williams were sentenced to a term of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Hear what Judge Michael U. Sand had to say to them.
Newsom. You, sir, are a perfect example of why we have in this state a felony murder rule. I'm pretty sure, having sat through the trial, that you did not wake up that morning and say to yourself, I'm going to go kill somebody today, or I'm going to go and hook up with people who will murder someone. But you did go for an armed robbery. And what happens is that when you take a firearm and you rob somebody, you're telling the world, I'm going to take something that doesn't belong to me by force. And I've got deadly force. And I'm willing to use that deadly force and able to achieve my goals. And even if your intent at that moment was only to rob and not to kill, who can say that the death of the victim is not a predictable and foreseeable outcome of arming yourself and confronting the person? That's why we have the felony murder rule. You are a textbook case. During the trial, at one point, you lashed out at Robert Allen for being a snitch. I think your anger is misplaced. If you have any anger about what's happening here today and what will happen to you for the rest of your life, beyond the anger that you should have with yourself, perhaps your anger should be directed behind you at your co-defendants, the ones who selected the target in this case, and the one who turned a robbery into a murder. They're the ones that you can thank for your predicament beyond your own actions. Trayvon Newsom, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree with a firearm and robbery with a deadly weapon, a firearm. This court now sentences you on count 1 to life in Florida State Prison with a 10-year minimum mandatory and credit for 1,704 days already served. On count 2, I will sentence you to life in Florida State Prison with a 10-year minimum mandatory and credit for 1,704 days already served. The two sentences will run concurrent with each other. There are standard court costs of prosecution, which can be reduced to a civil lien. Mr. Williams, you are the perfect example of why we have a law of principles in this state. When you engage in criminal acts with others, you bear the responsibility for your collective actions. It was you who picked the target in this case. You went inside Riva Motorsports to confirm the identification and what was there, and then you went back out and sat in the vehicle. Now, while you may not have left the vehicle and you may not have brandished a firearm or fired the fatal shots, you are as guilty as they are because you are an essential part of that crime. Without your actions, it would not have happened. Additionally, I don't look at the way someone behaves in court. Courts, for sentencing purposes, courts are stressful things. People react to stuff differently. But there are things that I can look at. And I can tell you this court is shocked by your behavior after the murder. A person who had any measure of human decency or remorse for killing someone would not likely be seen dancing around and filming themselves with the stolen money, how proud you were of yourself. You should understand that while you were dancing on that bed, throwing down those bills, you weren't throwing money down on the floor. You should think of that as you tossing down the days, weeks, and months of your life, just like that. It's like so many pieces of paper. And the very next day, when you went to spend that blood money on sneakers and jerseys, you revealed to the court the value you placed on the human life that was taken. Just a pair of sneakers to you. Dedrick Williams, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of murder in the first degree and robbery with a firearm as a principal. As to count one, this court will find you guilty, adjudicate you to be guilty, sentence you to life in Florida State Prison, with credit for 1,752 days already served. Count two, I sentence you to life in Florida State Prison, with credit for 1,752 days already served. Two counts will run concurrent with each other. There are standard court costs of prosecution. I will reduce those to a civil lien. Both you and Mr. Newsom should understand that life sentences are necessarily life without possibility of parole because we do not have parole in Florida.
Michael Boatwright received consecutive terms of life without parole, plus another 30 years. The presiding judge, Michael Usan, expressed his condemnation of Boatwright at his sentencing. Listen to what the judge had to say.
Mr. Boatwright, you turned a robbery into a murder. And on that day, when you stood there and fired that weapon, you didn't just end one life. You effectively ended 5 lives, including your own. Like I just said, you need to understand that when we say life in Florida State Prison, that means life. It is necessarily without parole. Florida abolished parole. You know, as the song says, you can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. You will spend the rest of your life in prison. From here, you will go and be placed in a cell that has a stainless steel slab that's attached to the wall. That's your bed. And next to it is a stainless steel sink and a stainless steel toilet. That's the furniture that you have in that cell. You'll spend every hour and every day and every week and every year of your life in that cell. And one day, they'll come and open up that cell in the morning and you'll have passed on. And only on that day will you have served your sentence. A jury of your peers having found you guilty of murder in the first degree with a firearm and having discharged that firearm and having that firearm discharge result in the death of Jose Hanfroy, this court will sentence you to life in Florida State Prison with credit for 1,732 days already served. As to count two, for the robbery with a firearm, which was discharged and causing death, this court will sentence you to life in Florida State Prison, credit for 1,732 days already served. Both counts carry with them a 25-year minimum mandatory. Count two will run consecutive and not concurrent with count one. And both counts will run consecutive and not concurrent with your sentence in case number 1316428 CF 10A. The court cost prosecution will be reduced to a civil lien. You will have 30 days to appeal. Thank you.
On May 17, 2023, Robert Allen was sentenced to 7 years in prison with credit for time served, plus a consecutive 20 years probation. Take a listen to what Allen had to say in court.
Today I plead to the court for my own life and not to be sent to state prison.
I do believe you are not the same person who I arraigned 5 years ago. I genuinely believe that you are sorry for what you have done and not merely sorry for yourself. So on counts 1 and 2, this court will find you guilty, adjudicate you to be guilty, sentence you to 7 years in Florida State Prison.
Robert Allen was released from prison on October 26, 2023. His current location is unknown. Trayvon Newsom is currently serving his life sentence at Florida State Prison in Bradford County, Florida. Michael Boatwright is incarcerated at the Martin Correctional Institution in Martin County, Florida, and Dedrick Williams is currently serving his life sentence at the Wakulla Correctional Institution, which is 20 miles southeast of Tallahassee, Florida. They will never be released. In first place, we have Eric Holder Jr. Holder Jr., who went by the street name Shitty Cuz, was a Crip gang member and rapper who represented the Rolling 60s set. He was from the Crenshaw neighborhood in South Los Angeles. On March 31st, 2019, Eric Holder Jr. fatally shot and murdered West Coast rapper Nipsey Hussle outside a store in South Central Los Angeles. Nipsey Hussle, real name Ermias Askedom, was a rapper, entrepreneur, and activist. Emerging from Crenshaw, LA, Nipsey made a name for himself on the West Coast hip-hop scene. Hussle dropped many successful mixtapes and singles featuring artists such as YG, Trey the Truth, and Jadakiss. Nipsey's debut album Victory Lap went certified double platinum. At the 62nd Grammy Awards in 2020, after his unfortunate death, Nipsey Hussle won awards for the songs Racks in the Middle and Higher. On March 31st, 2019, Eric Holder Jr. and his girlfriend were on their way to get food from a burger restaurant near Slauson Avenue and Crenshaw Boulevard. As they pulled into the lot, Holder spotted Nipsey Hussle and a group of friends in front of the Marathon clothing store. Holder Jr. got out the car and approached Nipsey and the group. The pair had a brief conversation in which Nipsey told Holder word on the street was he had paperwork on him. According to witnesses, it wasn't said in a disrespectful way, and there was no argument or heated discussion. Holder was heard asking Hussle, "So you ain't never snitched?" as he walked off. Eric Holder Jr. was seen on camera making his order inside Master Burger moments before the shooting. Holder pays for the order before leaving again. In the chilling footage in what would be the last living moments of Nipsey Hussle's life, Eric Holder enters Master Burger again, waiting to collect his order. You can see him pacing up and down, contemplating his next move. Finally, Holder comes back inside one final time to collect his order. He is seen chatting with some local girls inside the place. Nobody knows what was going on in Holder's mind when this conversation was happening. The decision to kill Nipsey Hussle may have already been decided inside his head. Holder Jr. then got back into the car and he and the woman drove off. As she was driving, Holder allegedly pulled out a gun and told the woman to drive around the block so that he could load the weapon. He told her to pull over and said he'd be back. Watch the camera footage as Holder walks right past Master Burger in a red t-shirt. He switched up his clothing inside his date's car, an act that could be seen as premeditation. It was at that moment Holder Jr. approached Nipsey and his friends again and opened fire in the middle of the lot. After shooting Nipsey several times, Holder was about to leave the scene before turning back around and shooting Nipsey at least 5 more times at point-blank range. Holder even had the audacity to kick the rapper in the head before fleeing. As he lay dying after being shot at least 10 times, Nipsey turned to Holder and allegedly told him, "You got me." A couple of bystanders were also wounded in the shooting. Eric Holder Jr. was on a date with a woman who became his unwitting getaway driver right after the murder took place. When Holder Jr. got back into the car with the woman, he told her to quickly drive away. When she questioned him about what happened, he threatened to slap her if she didn't drive. Watch the real-life footage caught on camera. This was vital evidence for convicting Holder Jr. with first-degree murder. Viewer discretion is advised. Keep watching as Holder sneaks up on the group unexpectedly. Nipsey Hussle barely had a second to react. Within seconds, several bullets were fired from Holder's gun. Even if he had run, the chances are he would have been fatally hit. In In an act that can only be described as ruthless, you can see Holder go back one last time to shoot Nipsey with several bullets at point-blank range, before kicking him in the head and fleeing the scene. The shooting is also caught on camera footage from Master Burger. Keep an eye out for Eric Holder Jr. as he runs past the restaurant in the aftermath. The aftermath of the shooting was recorded by a bystander. You can see Nipsey Hussle is carried onto the ambulance with a stretcher. A woman is heard screaming in the background. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh no, they didn't get Nipsey Hussle, man. Oh my God, they didn't get Nipsey Hussle. Are you serious? Are you serious? Oh my goodness.
This was live aerial footage taken right after Nipsey Hussle's murder. Listen to what LAPD Chief Mitchell Moore had to say about it.
This was not a chance encounter. We don't think that this was a sudden engagement. The individual, we are pursuing a number of investigative leads. We're looking at video evidence. We're looking to identify a vehicle. I think the person who's responsible for this, people involved in this, they know who they are and they're watching this right now. And I'd ask them to surrender and turn themselves in.
You think the shooter knew him?
I believe so, yes.
Chief, why would he be a target, though? Any idea?
Our investigation will determine that. Whether this was, what drove this senseless act. We're trying to understand the underlying motives and some to try to make sense of it. I don't know that we'll make sense of it.
On April 2nd, 2019, a couple of days after the shooting, Holder Jr. turned himself into a mental health clinic. He was arrested the same day around 1 p.m. in the 9000 block of Artesia Boulevard in Bellflower by Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies after a witness called authorities to report seeing a person believed to be Eric Holder Jr. On April 4th, 2019, Holder Jr. appeared in a Los Angeles County court for the first time. Holder was charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, and possession of a firearm by a felon. He pleaded not guilty and was held in lieu of $6.5 million bail. Just over 1 month later, on May 9th, 2019, a grand jury indicted Eric Holder for the shooting death of Grammy-nominated rapper Nipsey Hussle, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office announced. Holder Jr. was indicted on 1 count of murder, double counts of attempted murder and assault with a firearm, and 1 count of possession of a firearm by a felon after the indictment was unsealed. Prosecutors previously charged Holder with the same counts, but the indictment meant they could skip a preliminary hearing and head to trial. The trial for Eric Holder Jr. began on June 2, 2022, 3 years after rapper Nipsey Hussle was murdered. Holder's trial date was originally scheduled to start January 5, 2021, but it was postponed for another year due to the pandemic. Eric Holder's guilt was not in question throughout his trial, with multiple witnesses confirming his identity and the shooting captured on security cameras. Rather than arguing for an acquittal, Holder's attorney, Aaron Janssen, tried to persuade jurors they should convict his client of a lesser manslaughter charge instead of murder. Attorney Janssen's argument hinged on the words that Holder and Nipsey allegedly exchanged before the shooting. The two men had been members of the Rollin 60s, a subset of the Crip street gang that has long dominated Crenshaw since they were teenagers. Attorney Janssen said that being accused of snitching by someone of Hussle's stature in front of other gang members in the heart of Rollin 60s territory left his client so triggered that he wasn't thinking clearly when he stormed back into the lot with 2 loaded handguns.
This is a case about human passion. And the provocative act in this case
was that Nipsey Hussle had made an accusation against Mr. Holder that he was a snitch. That so inflamed and enraged Mr. Holder. The evidence will show that without thinking, and a few minutes later, a mere 9 minutes or so later, Mr. Holder returned and shot Mr. Askeladon. He did not have time to cool off. The evidence will show that it was very soon after this accusation was made publicly against him that he was so enraged and triggered by this emotional response that he acted without premeditating. That's what the evidence will show. And the evidence will show that he's charged with first degree premeditated deliberate murder. In fact, it should be voluntary manslaughter because he's acting under heat of passion. He's also charged in counts 2 and counts 4 with first degree premeditated attempted murder against Mr. Latham and against his nephew, Mr. Villanueva. The evidence will show that Mr. Holder had no intent to harm or to kill either one of those individuals. They were just close by in the parking lot when this happened. The evidence will show that he didn't know either Mr. Villanueva or Mr. Latham. He had no harsh words with either one of those individuals, and they had no harsh words or anything, conversation with him that would trigger him to try to kill these other two individuals, let alone that Mr. Holder had the state of mind where he premeditated and deliberated killing these other two individuals. That thought never even entered his mind. There'll be no evidence that they had anything between them, that they didn't even know each other. So based on that, we're going to ask you to keep an open mind, listen to all of the evidence. Don't make up your mind in the beginning. Wait until you hear all of the evidence so that you can make a rational, fair, and just verdict. Wait until you get the jury instructions from the court. And when you get in the back and start deliberating, we're confident that you will come back with a verdict of not guilty of first degree murder against Mr. Askeladon, and also not guilty for the two attempted murders against Mr. Latham and Mr. Villanueva. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
In the trial's last days, the courtroom in downtown Los Angeles was full as attorneys made their closing arguments, with members of the crowd nodding or smirking in response to Prosecutor McKinney's argument for a murder conviction.
Some murders are spontaneous. They happen quickly without much thought. Typical example is a barroom fight. Two guys go to a bar to have a good time. One disrespects the other, and 2 seconds later, a beer stein is being slammed into somebody's head and kills them. Okay, there's no opportunity for any real deliberation or premeditation in that act. You're going to have a default second-degree murder. Unlike these circumstances where Mr. Holder had plenty of time, a full 10 minutes passed after that conversation and the time he returned and committed the shooting. And we know in that time he prepared his gun, he armed himself with a second gun, and all of the facts that I discussed earlier this morning. Plenty of evidence of premeditation and deliberation. Again, it does not take a long time. Premeditation and deliberation is not measured by how much time somebody spends thinking about it. A cold, calculated decision to kill can be reached very quickly. The law recognizes that. In this case, you had quite a bit of time for premeditation and deliberation. 10 minutes is a long time to think about something and then do it. Now, this instruction here, heat of passion, and this is where the defense is going to argue to you that this cold-blooded, this cold and calculated killing should be mitigated. And the theory that you're going to hear is it should be mitigated because Nipsey Hussle himself provoked Mr. Holder to attack him. That Nipsey Hussle did something that was so powerful it caused an almost irresistible response in Mr. Holder to kill him. That's what heat of passion is. That's how it's defined in the law. The target is Nipsey for sure. That's who he really wants. But he's got to account for the other people who are there. And that's why he shoots them. He doesn't shoot them by accident. He doesn't, bullets aren't passing through Nipsey and going into other people. He's pointing, bullets fly straight. He's pointing the gun and he's hitting who he can. He sized it up from the time he turned that corner and walked along that sidewalk in front of those storefronts. And carried out his plan to a T. Was able to do all of this damage and escape and get back down to Long Beach for a couple of days safely.
While on trial, Holder Jr. was attacked by other inmates while in a holding cell. Holder was punched and cut with a razor and had to be treated at hospital. Law enforcement officials have not offered a motive in the attack. The Los Angeles County jury reached a verdict after jurors deliberated for nearly 5 hours the day before. Eric Holder Jr., 32, was found guilty and convicted of first-degree murder in the 2019 killing of rapper Nipsey Hussle. Holder was also convicted on counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter and assault with a firearm involving the 2 other people who were injured in the shooting. On one count of possession of a firearm by a felon, Holder showed no reaction to the verdict. Holder's attorney, Aaron Johnson, said he was deeply disappointed about the murder conviction and planned to appeal. Take a look as the dramatic verdict is read out in court.
Holder Jr., DA 475908. Parties are present. All of our jurors are present. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
All right, the court understands there's a verdict. Who is our foreperson? Jury seat 12.
Yes, sir.
Has the jury reached a verdict on all counts?
Yes, sir.
All right, please hand the verdict form signed and unsigned to my bailiff, please. He'll leave it in an envelope. Clerk, please read the verdicts.
In the Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, Department 104, the people of the State of California versus Eric Ronald Holder Jr., case number BA 475908. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Eric Ronald Holder Jr., guilty of the crime of first-degree murder of Ermias Ashkadom in violation of Penal Code Section 187, subsection A, a felony as charged in count 1 of the indictment.
On Feb 22, 2023, the killer of celebrated Los Angeles rapper Nipsey Hussle was finally sentenced after a legal drama that dragged on for 3 years. Superior Court Judge Clay Jack handed down the sentence to Holder in a Los Angeles County courtroom. The judge sentenced Holder to 25 years to life for the murder, an additional 25 years for a firearm sentencing enhancement, and 10 years for assault with a firearm, a total of 50 years to life for his role in the killing. Take a listen to what the judge had to say.
Of what was presented as to Mr. Holder's mental health history. I'm also mindful of the devastation caused to the victims and their families. So I think this sentence balances both. The principal term in this sentence will be count 3, the 245A2 on Mr. Latham. The court selects the midterm of 3 years in state prison. For the gun, there will be an additional 4 years in state prison consecutive. And then for the rape bodily injury allegation that was found true, it will be 3 years consecutive to that. So for count 3, it will be a total of 10 years in state prison. As to count 1, the murder in the first degree of Mr. Askedon, the sentence will be the term prescribed by law, which is 25 years to life. In addition, there will be the 12022.53D allegation, which is consecutive. That will be an additional 25 years to life. So for count 1 alone, it would be 50 years to life. The total sentence would be 60 years to life in prison. The court would also recommend to the Department of Corrections that the defendant be housed in a facility that would address his mental health needs.
Eric Holder Jr., now 34, is currently serving his life sentence at the California Medical Facility located in the city of Vacaville, Solano County. Holder's first eligible parole date will be November 2039, according to the California Incarcerated Records and Information Search. I'd just like to say sincere condolences to all the victims' families in this video. And rest in peace, Chinx, XXXTentacion, and Nipsey Hussle. They may be gone, but never forgotten. Their music will live forever. And that's all we got for this episode. Please leave a like, subscribe, and stay in tune for more videos. Peace out.